Hello everyone, my name is Todd Cochran. I am the host of the Geek News Central podcast, and I wanted to take a few minutes today to talk to you about podcasting and my specific philosophy in creating a podcast. For a long time, many of you have been sending me emails saying, Todd, what type of podcasting gear do you use? What is your workflow? What do you do in creating your show? So I thought I would take a few minutes and go into that in detail. But first of all, I want to back up a little bit and talk about why I started podcasting. Over 2 years ago, I was sitting in a hotel room in Texas, and I heard about podcasting, and at the time I had already been writing a weblog for a couple of years. And I've always been passionate about communicating with people about different subjects and topics. And I thought, wow, this is a great way for me to reach out and talk to people about technology, things that I'm specifically passionate about. And little did I know from that very beginning, that very humble beginning, what would happen or what would turn out. As I started my show, and quite honestly, it was sitting in that hotel room with a single computer and a very cheap $695 Lab Tech headset is what I had plugged into an audio port on the PC using Audacity at the time, something free I found over the internet. I started to lay out the process of what would turn into what is today the very formatted Geek News Central podcast. So the main thing I want to say about that very beginning is I started out very inexpensively. I bought a small, cheap headset. I did not go out and buy any microphones. I didn't go and buy any mixers or anything like that. But what started from that process was an understanding that I wanted to ensure that I had very high quality audio for my show, with also having a workflow that would allow me to continue to do what I do with my regular job and also fit my lifestyle and not give time away from my kids and my family. So as I got off that travel and got home back here in Honolulu, I started to look at the process in which I could set my show up so that I would not have to waste a lot of time doing post-editing. A lot of podcasters today will record a show, and it may take them 25 or 30 minutes to record the show, but maybe they have done 2 or 3 hours worth of research beforehand, and then when they get done recording the show, they'll spend 2 or 3 or maybe even 5 hours post-editing the show till it gets to the format exactly they want it before they post it. As a married man with 4 kids, that was going to be impossible. So my goal was to do my show from start to finish in 3 hours. And so I laid out a plan, and that plan included having good recording gear, because I figured if I had good audio quality to begin with, I would not have to spend that extra time at the end doing all the extra audio editing and removing noise or anything else that was going to impede me from that 3-hour deadline of creating the show. So let me talk a few minutes about buying good equipment and when you should buy good equipment. As a rule of thumb, I have found that many podcasters get real excited about doing a show, and they'll do 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 shows and be real super excited. But after the 7th, the 10th, the 15th show, they kind of understand that doing a show takes a lot of work. And they become discouraged because maybe their show size, their show audience size hasn't grown as fast as they expected it to, or maybe they're not getting exactly what they want out of the creation of the show. So I tell all podcasters that you should not buy any equipment that is going to cost you any significant amount of money until you've at least done 20 to 25 shows. Now, that's not to say if you are very dedicated from the very beginning and you know exactly what you want, then yeah, maybe you want to go ahead and purchase some equipment. But be advised that some of this equipment is not cheap, but you can go on a magnitudes of level of quality. You can get started relatively inexpensively. Like I said, I used a $695 headset for the first 10 to 15 shows, and after that I stepped it up a little bit. I probably had $150 worth of equipment, which I had a basic microphone, a basic mixer, and then when I got a little further in my process, then I really cranked it up and I bought what I would consider to be pro audio recording gear. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to pause, and then I'm going to go ahead and switch the scene, and I'm going to show you the gear that I use today and talk a little bit about each piece and why it's important in my production scheme. And then when we're done with that, we'll go into the actual process that I use to record my podcast. Alright folks, what you're seeing now is my basic recording rack. And I think it's important that if you get into buying some pro gear, that you do get a recording rack or a housing rack to put the gear in. These pieces of equipment come standard 19 inches in width, and you can buy any of these type of racks at most audio stores or via most online magazines. I think the little rack that holds all this gear was about $40. But it makes it look real neat. You can get the cables tied up pretty good, and if you're living, doing your recording in a spare bedroom or an office in your home, then it just looks good, and it also keeps your wife happy where there's not a whole bunch of junk just stacked on top of one another. I want to start at the very top of the rack, and you'll see that there is a box there that's called a Telios. The Telios is a phone bridge. It allows me to be on headset and talking into my standard microphone while patching in a guest to my show. I use this a lot when I'm doing the tech podcast roundtables. I patch in the audiences through Skype and also through the conference call line, and we're able to talk as a group through that box. And it also ties into my mixer board so that I can get an output to my actual recording software on my PC. That box itself is about $500. Now, the reason that this box costs so much is because the difference between a phone line and being able to go into a professional audio rig, there's a differential in essentially the volume levels. And this system does a very good job of balancing those levels and allows you to have great audio. And it's typically the same type of gear that is used in most professional radio stations. You can go with some gear that's a little more inexpensive. Another company that I recommend is JDK Audio, I believe. They have a box that's about half that price. But if you want a box that's really going to perform well, that Telios just cannot be beat for the little home studio. The next box down is a Furman power conditioner. Now, when you are recording audio, it is just absolutely critical that you have good, clean power. All of my recording gear, minus my PC, is actually plugged into that box. There's a line of power strips behind it. It just conditions the power so that you get nice, clean power on all of your components. The box below that is not super important. I don't use that a great deal. I do that when I'm using, when I recorded events at conferences and such. I don't use that in any of my active recording. That is an Aphex Compeller 320A. I picked this up on eBay. Generally, that piece of gear right there, brand new, is $1,300 or $1,400, but I think I picked it up for about $300 on eBay. Again, I only use that in a post-production scheme when I've actually recorded something in a conference or a live event where I need to go through and work on the audio a great deal. Below that is a standard DBX 215 two-channel equalizer, and that I do use in my production flow. That box itself is the first piece of gear, actually one of the last pieces of gear in the audio chain, but you can't tell because of the way it's in the stack. But it just acts as a standard equalizer, and you can set it to the levels that you want to. The next box down is called a compeller, and it's a compeller slash gate. It's a DBX product. Model number on that is 266XL, and if your house is as noisy as mine, this box helps you keep the noise level off of your recording and also provides a gating function to do that. It's a great box for the price. I think the equalizer is a little over $200. The DBX 266XL compeller gate is probably about $2.50 or $250 as well. All right, the next box down is a Aphex 204. They call this the big bottom. Some people like to use it, some people don't. I actually love this box because what it does is it gives, after you've digitally processed a signal for a little bit, this box gives you kind of that oomph back into a sound, gives you a little bit of bass back into the voice, takes some of the it re-adds some of the stuff that's been removed from some of the other processing. The next box down is a Dominator 2 Aphex box. It is a limiter. I currently don't use that in my stack. It's another piece I picked up on eBay for a real good price, and it's just something that I was able to get at such a good deal that I decided to pick it up, but have not used it in my current production scheme. Okay, then on the bottom I have a Mackie 1202 VLZ Pro 12-channel mixer. And I think what's important about mixer selection is Mackie has some of the most world-renowned amplifiers. And it's very, very important when you're dealing with, trying to get good quality sound into a recording. Your first line of defense is a very good amplifier. So the Mackie is probably the Mac Daddy of home mixers. You'll see these all over the place. You'll see them in professional recording studios. You see them, bands use them. They're very durable. And that product right there has analog out. There's no firewire for that particular model. Again, it's a 1202 VLZ Pro, and it works great for my chain. Now, if you want to record your signals into a firewire device, then there's some new models out by Mackie in their Onyx line that is going to suit that purpose just well. All right, the box besides that is a new addition to my recording rig, and this is a single channel microphone amplifier. It's the Solo 610. It's a true tube amplifier. I love this box. This is a very expensive amplifier for a microphone, but the quality of sound that you get through that box is unsurpassed, and is probably one of the boxes that was one of my better investments in getting my sound quality up. Now above that, you'll see a little itty bitty recorder in there, and what that is a Marantz PMD 660 recorder. Now, this is a recorder that I use as a backup recorder to my primary computer recording, and it serves the purpose very well. It has you can record on a 2 GB smart media card about 6 hours worth of audio, so it works perfect for any endeavor. It acts as a backup recorder, and this is the recorder I'll be using when I go to the Consumer Electronics Show to actually do on-the-floor interviews. So we'll talk about that recorder in the configuration that I'll have for CS in a little bit. But next thing up, let's talk a little bit about the computer software that I use in the actual process. I'll go ahead and reposition the recorder at this time, and then we'll get into that subject. All right, I'm very fortunate here that I have two computers to work with. And the laptop is the essentially single workstation unit I use when I'm on the road, but when I'm home here in the office, I use a 2-computer configuration to do my show. Okay, on the computer on the flat screen over here in the corner, I have Adobe version 1.5 loaded. That is my primary recording software. And it's really a very simple piece of software to use. I put it in a single channel mode. I go ahead, and when I get ready to record the show, I simply hit record and off I go. I'm not worried about making too many edits. If I make a big mistake during the process of the show, I'll stop the recording, back up to the spot where I made a mistake, and then I'll restart on that spot. But generally, on a normal 1-hour show, I may have to stop the recording once or twice. So this software works out real well, and being able to just do that on the fly. If I can go back and reset the pointer and restart it. But I've tried using Adobe Edition version 2.0, and I'm wasn't real pleased with it. So I've stuck with 1.5 as my primary recording software. Now, down in the corner, believe it or not, is a very simple an application that many people are probably familiar with, and it's simply Winamp. If I have audio pieces that I need to play within the show, I go ahead and just preload them into there, and then when it's time to play audio comments or something that needs to be spliced in, I just go ahead and play it like I would any other normal piece of music or anything else or any audio, and I have the computer audio card configuration set up in a way that Adobe Audition just picks that up and automatically incorporates it in real time. So that is essentially my two pieces that I use for actually doing the physical recording onto the computer is Adobe Audition and Winamp. Now when I'm on the road, I'm able to use the same application, Audio Audition and a Winamp, on this particular computer. But the reason I use two computers when I'm home is I'm able to watch the recording at live, watching it recorded live, and have a little more access to Winamp separately. But on this computer, which you probably can't see real close, I have the program called Feed Demon loaded. It's a news aggregator. And in preparation for my show, when I come up here at night to sit down to do the show, I'll go ahead and I'll read through approximately 600 different news feeds. And when I'm reading through that, I go ahead and pick out the articles that I want to review, which I'll usually end up with about 50 tabs loaded in Feed Demon. I'll go back and review the 50 and whittle those down to about 20 articles that I want to talk about. That generally takes me about an hour. So once Feed Demon is completely, I've got that set up with all the articles I'm going to talk about, I load up the advertising scripts that I may have for the night. I get my email client set up with all the show comments stacked from newest to oldest, and then I'm ready. And what will happen then is I'll simply go ahead and start recording, play my intro music, talk about my content, use Feed Demon to go through my articles, and then at the end, we'll go ahead and use Winamp to bring in any audio comments that have come in via the voicemail hotline at 619-342-7365. And we'll play those there. And then when that's done, I go ahead and go right into email comments, and I'll just bring up the email application. I use Outlook. I'll just go ahead and start overviewing. I've usually tagged 10 to 12 emails that I want to read. Generally, I can't get through all of them. So that tends to be the challenge from, on that aspect on time. And from that point, from start to finish, we're already about 2 hours and 2 hours and 15 minutes into the process. And I'll go ahead and stop the recording, save. I'll put the ID3 tags in using iTunes. So I just load the MP3 file up into iTunes. And then I'll drop the ID3 tags in there. And then I simply upload to the server via FTP. I publish my show notes via my blog and save it, and it's online and ready for consumption. Now, one thing I didn't cover here is I didn't cover my microphone. I use a Rode NTK microphone. It's a condenser microphone, and as you can see, I have it hanging from a arm here that comes from back behind the desk, and I'm able to move that at will during the show, and it works out really, really great for being able to keep the microphone out of my way, and I can have it offset just a little bit so that it works good. All right, the last segment I want to do here tonight is I want to talk about the gear that I'm going to be using at the Consumer Electronics Show, and then we'll wrap this. All right, what you see here is the mixer that I take on the road with me. It's a little 6-channel Tapco mixer. This mixer is about $60. Does a great job. It's actually made by a subsidiary of Mackie, so it's got a great sound to it, even for as inexpensive as it is. So I recommend people that are looking for a starter mixer to consider Tapco as a mixer to start with. Beside that, I have a shotgun mic. This is a Sennheiser ME66/K6 shotgun mic. That microphone is very directional. I can point that at someone, get a good interview recording, while at the same time it is very good in isolating any other noises surrounding the microphone. So it's real good at isolation and works good in high noise areas. On top is I use a Sprint eVideo card and a Cressira a router that card plugs into to be able to have connectivity when I'm in a hotel, so I don't have to pay hotel prices. That allows me to share my connection with more than one computer. So if there's 2 or 3 of us at a show, we can use that to use it for broadband, basically to get access. So that goes on the road with me. It's in the hotel. And finally, I have another standard interview microphone. Of course, you see my phone sitting right next to that, my home phone, and so we don't take that on the road. But this is an RE50 microphone. It's a very popular microphone with reporters. Again, that's very good on the noise level. It's a dynamic microphone, not a condenser. Typically, you don't want to use a condenser microphone of that type in a recording setting where you're bouncing around the microphone a lot. It just picks up a lot of noise. And then for real high level events, we use the Sony Digital Master tapes. Those are about, you can get them about $15 each. They're good for an hour. But the thing I like about those particular tapes is when you're doing high-end recordings, these are actually professional usage tape. Today we're recording with a tape that costs, I think, about $1.50. So we're not using a high-end tape on today's recording. But overall, if you want to take the widescreen view of my little production facility or my little office, is we have my little area on this side. And what's kind of beautiful is you look over on this side of the office, this is actually my wife's area. So her and I can work in the office at the same time. Matter of fact, she's been in the office many times when I've done recordings, and she's been able to hang out here while I'm doing this. So it's no different than any other standard office that's out there, and we didn't have to do anything special. The only thing we did have was an extra room. So I hope that you've enjoyed my little tour here today. So those of you that are listening to my audio podcast, you'll now have a visual idea of where we do the, where the magic happens, I guess. And if you've got any comments about today's video cast, you can send your comments to geeknews@gmail.com, geeknews@gmail.com. You can call our voicemail hotline at 619-342-7365. And you can also, if you've got comments about what we're going to be doing at the Consumer Electronics Show in January, we're going to be bringing you video casts directly from there, from the show floor, talking about the cool takeaways of the day. If you want to become a sponsor for the show that we're doing at the Consumer Electronics Show, drop us an email at that same email that we just talked about a few minutes ago. Until then, it's been my pleasure to bring you this edition of the Geek News Central Videocast.